AOC is trying out a brand new accent. Yeah, she's running. We'll laugh at her coming up in a moment. Plus, did you see that special episode of The View up in space? That was something special, and well, we'll laugh at them too. Also, have you been hypnotized into thinking that Trump has deported a Maryland man? A Maryland man. He's just a Maryland man. We're going to explain exactly who this guy is. And yesterday, what a scene in the Oval Office. Kaitlan Collins for CNN asking a question that she probably wishes now she didn't ask. A full cabinet level smackdown on live television. And we're going to glory in it coming up right now. My name is Larry O'Connor. Oh, wait. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. My name is Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry. Also, I'm fancy. So, yes, the tariffs are still a thing, and China's now raising their tariffs, and we've got a showdown going on, and some countries are reacting, and some are playing it cool. And, well, the global economy is not where it was, say, a month ago, right? Potential widespread inflation is still an issue. We've got supply chain disruptions possibly because of the tariffs. But there is a silver lining that a lot of people missed in all the tariff talk. Did you know that President Trump specifically exempted gold and silver bullion from all of the tariffs? That's right. While these new policies are triggering significant problems financially on various markets, including Wall Street, well, the administration preserved the ability for you to diversify into precious metals. So if you're concerned about your savings, get a free consultation right now from a Birch Gold precious metals specialist. The first step is to text Larry, that's my name, Larry, to 989898. You'll receive your free, no obligation info kit on gold. Learn how to hold gold in a tax-sheltered account. Birch Gold is going to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a gold IRA for no money out of pocket. Is it time for you to diversify? With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and thousands of thankful customers, you want to text Larry to the number 9898 so a classy group can respond to you. Birch Gold. Again, text Larry to 989898 to claim your free info kit right now. One thing that we are loving about the second Trump term is that Trump isn't the only one out there trying to defend himself, to make his case. He's got a cabinet of people who are not only very skilled at defending a political position and communicating that political position, but they seem to relish it. They seem to enjoy actually being the tip of the spear together as a team. And we saw it demonstrated no better than yesterday in the Oval Office. President Trump sitting there on the straight back chair next to the fireplace, and he's got the president of El Salvador, President Bukele, with him. And of course, they bring in the media. Now, you'll remember these little photo ops back when Biden was president. He would sit and stare off into space, hoping that the ketamine wouldn't wear off before the time came where he had to actually say something. He would sort of giggle because all he saw was colorful, shapeless blobs in front of him, screaming questions at him. It was a fun time. He was on shrooms. Anyway, very different with President Trump. Kaitlan Collins of CNN wanted to ask a question, a really important question, about the Maryland man. And here's how it went.
Go ahead. Let's hear the question from this very low-rated anchor at CNN. Low rated. Which one is it?
The man was mistaken for his health.
Well, let me ask Pam. Would you answer that question?
Sure, President. First and foremost, he was illegally in our country. He had been illegally in our country. And in 2019, two courts, an immigration court and an appellate immigration court, ruled that he was a member of MS-13 and he was illegally in our country. Right now, it was additional paperwork had needed to be done. That's up to El Salvador if they want to return him. That's not up to us. The Supreme Court ruled, President, that if, as El Salvador wants to return him, this is international matters, foreign affairs. If they wanted to return him, we would facilitate it, meaning provide a plane.
So will you return him?
All right. So will you return him as the follow-up? Let's pause there. We went through this quite a bit yesterday with Stephen Miller's masterful performance on the lawn in front of the Oval Office yesterday with the media. You remember that. This happened about an hour later. I swear to God, I texted Kevin McMahon, our great producer here, and said, I almost want to go live again just to go over this press conference, what happened in the Oval. And he said, now we'll do it tomorrow. It'll be great. And that's what we're doing right now. But just to reiterate a couple of things here, because everyone's like, well, how do we know he's MS-13? He says he's not MS-13. I would like to count on just one hand right now in front of you how many members of the MS-13 gang, now deemed a terrorist organization, admit in front of a judge in open court that they are, in fact, members of MS-13. Here we go. There it is. In fact, even further, I'm going to count for you the number of MS-13 gang members who have MS-13 tattooed almost literally on their face or somewhere else on their body, who admit in open court under oath in front of a judge that they are, in fact, members of MS-13. You know, that same MS-13 that's tattooed on their face. Here's how many of them admit to it. There it is. They all deny that they're members of MS-13. So what do we have to go on here in America with the rule of law? Well, we have a process, and then we have judges make determinations. And in this case, 2 different courts said, yep, he's MS-13, which, as you know, Donald Trump, the president of the United States, elected by all of us, has in fact determined that MS-13 is a terrorist organization. Immigration judges don't matter at this point. This is national security. This is the commander-in-chief. And that's what the Supreme Court reiterated. In fact, that's now what we'll go to as President Trump, it's great here, says, hey, Stephen Miller, I think you've got something to say about this, don't you?
You are doing a great job. Thank you, Pam. Stephen Miller, wait a minute. Could you just also respond to that question? Because, you know, it's asked by CNN and they always ask it with a slant because they're totally slanted because they don't know what's happening. That's why nobody's watching them. But would you answer that question also, please?
Yes. So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So, it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As 2 immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So he had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the president could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world. And I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't think
But the Supreme Court is asking to. And what was the ruling in the Supreme Court, Steve? Was it 9-0?
Yes, it was a 9-0
In our favor.
in our favor against the district court ruling, saying that no district court has the power to compel a foreign policy function of the United States. As Pam said, the ruling solely stated that if this individual at El Salvador's sole discretion was sent back to our country, that we could deport him a second time.
like
No version of this legally ends up with an ever living here because he is a citizen of El Salvador. That is the president of El Salvador. Your question to that, per the court, can only be directed to him.
All right, so let me jump in here because, again, we just need to reiterate things because, sadly, all of the people with their journalism degrees from Northwestern or USC or where have you, they're on television, they're reading teleprompters that have been fed information that is wrong and false. What you just heard is the truth. Oh, but there was a unanimous Supreme Court decision that said that Trump had to return this guy back to the United States. That's not true. You can see, these are public documents. Pull up the Supreme Court decision, search on the word return. It doesn't exist. The only word, as you just heard them say a couple of times, was facilitate. Facilitate. All right. What that means is if El Salvador wishes to send him to the United States of America, and let's not say back to the United States because he didn't come from here. He admitted himself that he came here illegally. We're going to get into all the details a little bit later in the program. But the word facilitate just means, as you heard from Attorney General Bondi, yeah, okay, if you release him and you want to send him here, we'll send a plane for him. Here's what happens. They send a plane for him. They put him immediately into custody. They put him in front of a judge. They determine that has already been found twice in open court that he's a member of MS-13 and he gets deported. And if you don't want to send him to El Salvador, then you can send him to, Gitmo. You can send him to Gaza. You can send him anywhere. I don't understand why Democrats and the media are so willing to go to the mat on this story when the vast, vast, vast majority of Americans just see the administration, the president, and his team going all in on protecting our nation and protecting our borders and enforcing our laws after 4 years of, I'll say it, chaos. But they're bound and determined, and we're bound and determined to deliver the truth to you, the facts to you, because you're getting a lot of misinformation, disinformation, willfully from other avenues. All right, so now this continues because everybody wants a piece of this. And Kaitlan Collins still has not quite read the room here. She continues to follow up. Well, are you going to return him? Well, are you?
Se lo liberaría peso.
¿Qué pasa que President Bukele do you plan to refer?
Well, I'm supposed to be not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? They tell me how can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the United States.
Releasing inside.
Yeah, but I'm not releasing. We're not very fond of releasing terrorists into our country. We just turned the murder capital of the world into the safest country of the Western Hemisphere, and you want us to go back into releasing criminals so we can go back to being the murder capital of the world? No, that's not going to happen.
Well, they'd love to have a criminal, released into it.
Can I just say I love this moment because all the reporters turn to Bukele and say, well, are you going to release him? And he's like, he's a criminal. He's a terrorist. He's an MS-13 guy. We don't release those people. You might do that here, but we're not nuts. We've learned. The reason people were fleeing El Salvador in droves to come to America is because there were murders going on every block because of people like this. Now you want us to return him? I like the incredulity that he displays in his answer is so great. It's like, what is wrong with you people? Of course we won't. But then you flip over to, ABC News and they're all wringing their hands saying, well, this is awful that this person won't be released, that this person won't be facilitated and returned back to America. And here's the president of El Salvador saying, what is wrong with you people? You're nuts. Why would you want to release him? It's just so great. And then Trump, says, yeah, they would love this. They would love to have the criminal out.
There's a fascinating.
They would love it.
Yeah,
They're sick. These are sick people. Marco, do you have something to say about it?
Yeah, Stephen outlined it. I don't understand what the cupidity is. This individual is a citizen of El Salvador. He was illegally in the United States and was returned to his country. That's where you deport people back to their country of origin, except for Venezuela that was refusing to take people back or places like that. I can tell you this, Mr. President. No, the foreign policy of the United States is conducted by the President of the United States, not by a court. And no court in the United States has a right to conduct the foreign policy of the United States. It's that simple. End of story.
And that's what Mr. Peasley held, by the way, to Marco's point. The Zedin court said exactly what Marco said, that no court has the authority to compel the foreign policy function in the United States. We won a case 9-0, and people like CNN are portraying it as a loss, as usual, because they want foreign terrorists in the country who kidnap women and children. But President Trump, his policy is foreign terrorists that are here illegally get expelled from the country, which, by the way, is a 90-10 issue.
Well, Mr. President, you said that if the Supreme Court said so likely to be returned, you would have filed. So that's what's based out.
How long do we have to answer this question from you? Why don't you just say, isn't it wonderful that we're keeping criminals out of our country? Why can't you just say that? Why do you go over and over? And that's why nobody watches you anymore. You have no credibility. Please go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
It is why nobody watches them anymore, but it's why people are coming here in droves to watch us watch them and make fun of them. It's such an amazing moment. And I want to believe that was planned out. Like, all right, listen, the press is going to be there. They're going to ask about this. All right. So I'm going to turn to you, Pam. You started out. Then I'm going to turn to Stephen. And then we'll come back. We'll get Bukele in there. You want in on this? See? Claro? Okay. And then I'll come back to Marco. Marco, you want in? Absolutely. We'll get Marco in there. And then if she continues to press, then Trump, he'll finish the kill shot. He'll finish it off. But they scripted it out. They planned it. It was all outlined. That's what I want to believe. Actually, I want to believe it was spontaneous. Either way, it was beautiful. And normally I would say that Trump had the cherry on top moment there, but that wasn't the cherry on top moment. Actually, the cherry on top moment is right here. Take a look.
Like CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
Before I get to you, I just want to say, for the record, since we heard President Trump say in the Oval Office that CNN hates our country, CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying. I've been here for 32 years, and I see a rhetorical device in him trying to.
Yeah. All right. It's funny, the language used there, and we're just going to break that down real quickly here. Dana Bash, when she says she's been here 32 years, she means CNN, not in America. I'm pretty sure she was born here. I just want to clear that up because she said, referring to our country, I've been here 32 years. She means CNN. While she was at CNN, by the way, she had an affair with a married man, John King, who's also on CNN, and then they had a baby, and then he left her for another woman. It's very tawdry. There's a lot of Me Too situations that go on in network news, but they're always lecturing you about that stuff. Anyway, look at the language Dana Bash uses here. It's fascinating.
President Trump say in the Oval Office that CNN hates our country. CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying.
That part right there. CNN does not hate our country. That should go without saying. Funny thing about stuff that should go without saying, you shouldn't have to say it. Why did she say that? I mean, was that her idea? Did the executive producer of the show say, hey, Dana, when we come back from the Oval, please make sure you remind everybody watching that we don't hate the country? Did the head of the network get on the phone? All right, listen, when you get back there, make sure that Dana reminds everyone that we don't hate the country. Super important. That's the thing about things that should go without saying. When you then say it, you're proving that maybe someone did need to say that thing that should go without saying because it doesn't seem like that thing is true. This thing being that they love our country, or for that matter, don't hate our country. Right? It's like, why didn't Dana Bash say, you just heard President Trump say, we hate our country, but I mean, just watch us. Obviously, that's not true. She didn't even say that, which would have been a passive way of doing it. No, she actually had to go out of her way and say, really, really, it's true. We don't. It should go without saying, but she said it. And our friends over at Media Research Center, they picked up on that, and they had a bit of a fact check. You see, Dana Bash thinks it should go without saying that CNN doesn't hate our country, and yet at the same time, this is the kind of thing CNN puts on the air.
Here's a breaking news. We live in a racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic country.
Everything they're doing runs against making America great.
Well,
it was never great, so I'm not going to say the again part, but making America great.
Kicking off the Independence Day weekend, President Trump will be at Mount Rushmore, where he'll be standing in front of a monument of two slave owners and on land wrestled away from Native Americans, told that be focusing on the effort to, quote, tear down our country's history.
They strongly believe, these human smugglers, that this is their chance to enter the United States. This is their chance at the American dream. That's why they risk everything, only to find out that it's all a lie.
And when we got our freedom, our quote unquote freedom, we were never restored whole, which is why you hear about reparations. So until the United States atones for that and makes good on that, we're still living in a racist country.
Yeah, good job, Newsbusters. Media Research Center, they're always the best. I mean, you see a quick little put together montage like that, and you wonder, maybe it doesn't go without saying. Maybe that's why Dana Bash made sure that she rushed in front of her viewers and said, oh, no, really, we don't hate our country. Forget about all the things that it said on this network. Forget about the paid employees saying things that sure make it sound like they hate our country. Don't believe any of that. Believe me, I'm Dana Bash. I've been here 32 years. Oh, what a day it was at the White House. Truly beautiful. Hey, listen, do your best to swing on over to store.townhallmedia.com. I show you our Larry mug all the time because I love my Larry mug, and I've got it right here. And I know that you love our show, and that's a nice little bit of swag. But we've got more. We've got the Golden Age t-shirt. You can get it in multiple colors, and that's pretty cool. You can also get your, oh, where'd that go? You can get your Doge hat. So people think you're part of the Doge squad, which is pretty neat. We've got other drinks too. We got the Town Hall VIP or Die Gadsden flag mug, right? You got your PJ Media mug. You got your MAGA mug. I mean, of course, you got your Triggered Cud mug. That's the Storm and Matt. They still have that podcast? That's impressive. We got a lot more clothes too, but either way, you can swag yourself up with lots of town hall swag, like the Trump 2024 Too Big to Rig victory shirt. All that and more over at store.townhallmedia.com. Plus more Larry swag too, Larry golf shirts, Larry t-shirts. Either way, you buy stuff there, you look cool, and you help us out. Thank you. Look at this news report from CBS News. I'm sure you've seen it all over the place. They keep repeating the story the same way. It's about that MS-13 gang member who is now back home in El Salvador after being in this country illegally for many, many years. But take a look at how they frame the story. Breaking. I love it when these stories are breaking. El Salvador's president says he won't return a Maryland man who was mistakenly deported to one of its prisons. Have you noticed it? Maryland man. He's just a Maryland man. He's just a guy from Maryland. He's a Maryland man. Our friend Chris DeGaulle, morning radio host on Salem News Channel, has put together a bit of a important image for you to stare into. Because this is what the media is doing to you. Maryland man, Maryland man, Maryland man. If we say it enough, you'll believe us. He's just a Maryland man. This guy's a Maryland man. He's the senator of Maryland, Chris Van Hollen, and he made a big announcement about the Maryland man. Maryland man Chris Van Hollen is going to go down to El Salvador to save the Maryland man because he's a Maryland man, don't you know?
I saw the comments of President Bukele, and I look forward to meeting with him. I've requested to meet with him. I reached out to the ambassador here to ask to meet while he's here. But I've also made clear if we can't meet here, I do intend to go to El Salvador to discuss the release of this individual who is illegally detained, a Maryland man who's the father of 3 in a notorious prison in El Salvador. And I believe the president of El Salvador will recognize why it's important to allow him to return to the United States of America, because it is absolutely unjust and illegal to have this Marylander detained one more day in a notorious prison in El Salvador.
He's a Marylander. He's a Maryland man. It's unjust. And there's your senator going to the mat for him to go rescue him because he's a Marylander. You know, it's funny. He said this yesterday. You know what else happened yesterday? In Maryland, in Senator Chris Van Hollen's state. Another Maryland man was put in jail, just like the Maryland man, ironically, that Van Hollen is talking about here. This Maryland man was in the country illegally. This Maryland man is from El Salvador. This Maryland man has ties to the MS-13 gang. This Maryland man kidnapped, sexually assaulted, raped, and murdered a Maryland woman. A Maryland mother. Now, that Maryland mother was born and raised in America and was a United States citizen. She was married and she had 5 children. She was out jogging on a path in Maryland near her home in Bel Air, Maryland, right near where I am right now, exercising and enjoying the path, the jogging path that her tax dollars paid for as a tax-paying, law-abiding citizen of Maryland and of the United States of America. And that's when she was abducted and raped and murdered by an illegal alien led into this country, living in Maryland with ties to MS-13. He was convicted yesterday. I don't have video of Chris Van Hollen saying anything about that. I don't have any video of Senator Chris Van Hollen talking about the injustice that was done to that woman, that Maryland woman. He didn't spend any time in front of cameras complaining about the illegal immigrant from El Salvador with ties to MS-13 gang members who committed that heinous crime. He was completely silent. Instead, he stood in front of cameras and promised to go down to El Salvador to save a guy just like that convicted murderer. The only difference is we don't know that he's committed that crime, but everything else is the same, from El Salvador in the country illegally ties to MS-13. But Chris Van Hollen says he's a Marylander. He's a Maryland man. He's a father of 3. He's a Maryland man. He's a Maryland man. Say it. Just say it. He's a Maryland man. Maryland man. Over on News Nation, the same story came up. See if you can tell who's lying here and who's actually delivering the facts to the audience. Spoiler alert, the actually paid journalist for News Nation is not the one delivering truth and facts and information.
The reality is this wasn't a Maryland father. This was a El Salvadorian man who was illegally in this country, who was affiliated with MS-13.
There is no evidence
Let's set the
to that.
record straight
There's
about
no-
who this person is.
There's no evidence that he was a gang member.
With all due respect, if the Department of Justice has come out and said that he has gang affiliations, just like the same man who killed Rachel Morin had gang affiliations. So you would have told me before Rachel Morin's death, you would have defended that man and said he had no gang affiliations, and he went on to kill Rachel Morin. So instead of defending this gentleman, talk about who he actually is and talk about the risk in keeping illegal criminals in this country. This is exactly what President Trump was elected to do, to return these people back to their home countries, and that's what he did.
We're not defending him. I'm going to reiterate that is unsubstantiated. There is no evidence of him being a gang member. He is married to a U.S. citizen, and he was in this country legally. Okay, but we don't know if he was
Being
actually.
married does not make you not a gang member.
There's no evidence. We're going to move on. There's no evidence that he was a gang member, and I want to reiterate that to
The
our
Department of
viewers.
Justice came out and said there was credible evidence that he was a member or
You
affiliated.
said he's
with
a gang
MS-13.
member, and he
That is a
wasn't
fact.
legally allowed to be here, which, again, he was legally allowed to be here. And he is married to
You
an
can hold
American
court for
citizen.
him all you want. He's no longer in this country.
All right.
One person, the Americans are safer because of it.
And to go back to the original question, so right now the White House seems to be doing nothing about getting him back, and that's fine. I'm going to move on.
He's an illegal immigrant. He was here illegally with deportation orders in 2019. What part of that do you not understand?
I understand the story very well, and I'm going to stop going back and forth with you on this, but I will say, again, he had every right to be in this country. Is there any scenario under which
He did
this
not.
guy...
He was an illegal immigrant.
We're going to move on
serious?
this.
No, I will not let you go forward.
Okay.
He was an illegal alien in this country with a deportation order in 2019. He is an El Salvadorian citizen. If you are not a citizen of the United States of America here illegally, there are grounds to deport you, in which happened recently.
Again,
Those are the facts.
unsubstantiated. Those are not the facts, but I will move on.
No, those are actually facts. She said he had every right to be in this country. Just so you know, if you're watching this and these facts that I'm laying out here now pertain to you, you might want to get out. If you're in the country illegally and there is a deportation order for you to be deported, you do not have every right to be in this country. So that teleprompter reader with lovely hair from News Nation is wrong. He did not have every right to be here. By the way, real fast, can you check out the chyron there? The lower third. What's the name of this topic they're discussing? Fate of Maryland man he's just in El Salvador. He was visiting and then they abducted him. He's a Maryland man. His fate is uncertain. He's a Maryland man. A Maryland man. Just keep saying it. He's a Maryland man. Great job there by Harrison Fields there, speaking on behalf of the White House. He's a deputy press secretary. Will Chamberlain has done a deep dive on this story. I commend you to check out his account over on X because he's talked about the Maryland man. He actually shows documents here, case documents, his detention from March of 2019. He entered the country illegally in 2012. Who was president then? Yeah, that's what I thought. He entered the country illegally in 2012, and he has admitted to that in open court. That is not in dispute. He is a native and a citizen of El Salvador. That means he is subject to the jurisdiction of a foreign country. Bear that in mind as you look through all of the documentation related to this case. It's not hard for teleprompter readers out there and the staff that they hire for the millions of dollars per television show to research this and have the facts. The finding that he was a member of MS-13 came up because he asked for bond, and the immigration judge reviewed the evidence and found that it showed he's a verified member of MS-13. There's your evidence. That counts as evidence when a judge takes a look at everything during a deportation hearing and says, no, we will deny you bond because you're a gang member. The immigration judge found that he was a flight risk because he had a history of failing to report. All of this documentation proves this out. 6 months later, instead of challenging the finding that he could be deported, he instead came up with a new story. He has a new claim now. He never mentioned this before in all of his court appearances. But now he says that if you send me back to El Salvador, I could be subject to torture and threats against my life. This is a protection under Article 3 of the convention. This is his documented appeal here. And this is back in, what's the date here? September of 2019. Now remember, as Will Chamberlain points out here, he's facing imminent removal. Given the ruling of the first immigration judge, he has 2 brothers who have green cards. His fiance is a citizen. He's just given birth to a child. He wants to stay here. So he comes up with a story. And so the story is that if he goes back to El Salvador, the 18th Street gang was targeting him and threatening him with death because of his family's business. Now, he has never mentioned this before in any of his appearances before a judge. But now that he's facing imminent removal, now he suddenly says the 18th Street gang is targeting him. And this new judge, he said they're trying to extort his mother. There's no evidence of this, just his testimony. And believe it or not, people lie in court if they think they're about to be deported. I know this is shocking, but they do. They said they threatened to kill him. Now, he never reported that any of this to any of the police in El Salvador or here in America, but he fears for his life. 8 years after the fact, he says that he fears for his life back in El Salvador. That's what he testified, even though the family business had already closed down. So remember, the 18th Street gang was threatening his life because of his mother's pupusas business, which is now shut down. So if there was a threat, which is just his testimony, who knows if 8 years later that threat exists. So despite all of that, a judge said, okay, fine, you can stay. The new immigration judge, though, did not grant him asylum. So that's important. So he does not have legal status. All he was granted was a stay of deportation. It doesn't mean that that deportation order isn't still valid. It just means that a judge put a stay on that. Okay. However, this guy was granted a withholding of removal to El Salvador. And again, that's not a legal right to say. Sorry, repeating myself. So that's the issue. The United States did indeed make an administrative error when they removed him to El Salvador, when there was a holding of removal to El Salvador. But that begs the question, could the administration terminate the withholding of removal? And of course they can. And in fact, they did when they deemed MS-13 a terrorist organization, because now none of that immigration stuff matters. Will Chamberlain, one more follow-up to this today. Crossed into our country illegally in 2012 by his own admission, did not apply for asylum, didn't show up in an embassy or a port of entry to go through any kind of legal process. He just entered. Authorities found him 7 years later after he'd been living in the country illegally. He was set to be deported. He asked for bond. It was denied because there was evidence he was a member of MS-13. That's when he said that there was some life-threatening situation. He says that if he was deported, then his life was in danger from the 18th Street gang. But that's the problem. There was no evidence that the 18th Street gang in 2019 ever threatened him, let alone still was a threat. He had no corroborating evidence to back up the claim. And the immigration said, okay, but the indictment here is not necessarily of the Trump administration for enforcing immigration laws. It's of our system. It's been 13 years since he crossed this country illegally. And he's finally now been determined to return to his home country, which he has been returned. All of that is fact. All of that is true. Everything that I showed you with the court documents is completely part of the record that any person in the media can look at right now and verify. But he's a Maryland man. He's a Maryland man. We have to rescue the Maryland man. Do you know how bad this is? I'll tell you how bad this is. This is the legal analyst on CNN. CNN for a brief moment yesterday on Jake Tapper's show. CNN.
President Trump and President Bukele made it clear that Abrego Garcia will not be returned to the United States, despite this U.S. Supreme Court ruling saying that Trump had to facilitate his return. So are they just ignoring a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, or is the fact that the ruling was so mushy, in your words,
yes,
giving him an opening?
It's a technical term I learned in law school, Jake. Mushy, look, they're working within the ambiguity that the Supreme Court justices gave them. They did not order the administration to return him to the United States. They said that they need to facilitate this return. They could have said, we order him returned, but they didn't do that. So you heard the Attorney General. She was being very careful in the Oval Office when she was asked, would you help? She says, of course, we'd provide a plane, right? Thereby facilitating whatever El Salvador is doing. The Supreme Court appeared to defer to the executive branch, given that this is an international matter. And you see, yes, it does look a little bit like a semantic game, but they are playing within the bounds of what the Supreme Court ruled. So no, they are not defying this order.
Bottom line, but you'll hear it everywhere. You'll hear it everywhere that they're defying the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously he has to be returned. You just heard it from CNN's legal analyst. But the Supreme Court did not say that. And there is nothing illegal about what the Trump administration is doing right now. While we're on CNN, you knew that this guy had to show up on this one. Watch how he lays it out there as well and explains all of this media manipulation and the hypnosis of Maryland man. And then watch how the host of the show, as usual, Abby Phillip, cuts him off right when he was making the point.
I think you guys need to understand, for the Trump administration, there's no version of this man's life that ends up with him living in the United States. Here's the way they view it. He's an illegal alien from El Salvador who came to the country illegally, who has a deportation order, who, in their view, and in the view of some immigration courts, has an affiliation with MS-13. They also believe on the Supreme...
That's not quite what it is. I think that the issue of the MS-13 thing is probably the most unclear of this whole thing. The administration has not provided that concrete evidence that they say they have, that he's a part of MS-13, and he strongly disputes in court, right? So this is not me saying it. He has disputed in court that he is a member of MS-13.
I think this is your
but I mean, it's predicated on something that is not necessarily.
There you go. Thank you, Newsbusters, as always. There you go. That's she cuts him off immediately, disputes it, clouds the issue, lies, because he's a Maryland man. He's a Maryland man. He didn't enter the country illegally in 2012. He didn't lie about his affiliation with MS-13. Two courts did not determine, based on the evidence, that he was affiliated with MS-13. He did not get a deportation order. He didn't then suddenly make up this idea that the 18th Street Gang will murder him if he goes back. And the 18th Street Gang is no longer around anymore. So that's not really a threat. But never mind any of that. He's a Maryland man. He's just a Maryland man. By the way, before we're done with all of this, can I just point out, I live in Maryland. I live in Annapolis, Maryland, the capital of Maryland, the oldest city in Maryland, founded in the 17th century. I know what a Maryland man looks like. That's a Maryland man. It's also Matt Foldy. And that's the Chesapeake Bay. And that's Old Bay, and that's crabs. Oh, you may see a man with crabs, which is just a rumor about Matt Foldy. I don't know if it's true or not. But when I look at that, I see a Maryland man. Keep watching the mainstream media just for entertainment purposes, but then come back here for the truth. I don't know if you saw the news yesterday, but it was huge out of Town Hall Media and our parent company, Salem Media Group. We've just forged a brand new relationship with Donald Trump Jr. and one of his news outlets, and also with Lara Trump. That's right. Huge stuff going on at Town Hall Media right now. We're going through a whole growth expansion, and I want you to be a part of all that brand new content because we're so excited about it. That's why you should become a member of Town Hall VIP. All this content that we're creating, when you go to all of our sites, including brand new site that we've just acquired and partnered up with Donald Trump Jr., you can can have an ad-free experience if you're a VIP member. Plus, you'll get exclusive content just for VIP members, and you'll be helping our journalism, our reporting, everything that you love that we do at Town Hall. You'll be helping us keep it free of the censors, free from the advertising boycotts. You'd be part of our club, and you get lots of fun stuff, including exclusive content just for you. So go to townhallvip.com, townhallvip.com, and I'm kind of burying the lead here. The best part, if you use my name at checkout, Larry, you'll get 50% off that Town Hall VIP membership. So go do that now, townhallvip.com, get all of our content, and get 50% off. Thanks. Now, a lot of people are saying that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to run for president. She'll be 35, which is the constitutional age requirement by the time the next election comes around. And she's been touring the country with Bernie Sanders on this Fight Oligarchy tour, although I would love for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to actually define oligarchy, but we'll get to that later. Here's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez last night at the rally. See if you notice something a little different about our AOC.
Do you have that clip for me, Larry?
Oh, sorry. Got so excited there. There we go.
Donald Trump is a criminal who was found guilty of 34 felony counts of fraud, liable for sexual abuse. Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too. When he talks about rapists and criminals, he should look in the mirror.
Wow. You know, first of all, on the substance of the claim, this is amazing. Why didn't they do this during the presidential election? Biden and Kamala and all the surrogates, they should have just gone to rallies like this and called Donald Trump a felon and a rapist and a criminal. And I mean, that would have been effective. That really would have changed voters' minds. See, that's all they did. It's all they did. Wait, who are you convincing with this? This is literally a talking point from 18 months ago that never worked. In fact, it helped Trump. They talk about preaching to the choir, and boy, what a choir it is. This is in Idaho, Nampa, Idaho. I didn't know there was a Nampa, Idaho. Now, the only reason I bring up the location, the geographic location, is because usually we see Democrats do this all the time where they change their accent to accommodate and ingratiate themselves and pander to the audience that they're playing to. Hillary did it all the time, right, with her fake Southern accent, and Obama did it, and Kamala did it. I mean, that's what they do. They pretend to have a Southern accent if they're in front of a Southern crowd. They're so genuine and authentic, aren't they? So this is Idaho, but I don't know what this accent is. I almost feel like she was watching some BBC drama. Was she watching Downton Abbey in the hotel before she came out here? Because it almost, I mean, let's watch it together. Can you identify this accent?
Donald Trump is a criminal who was found guilty of 34 felony counts of fraud, liable for sexual abuse. Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too. When he talks about rapists and criminals, he should look in the mirror.
So I need you to help us out here in the live chat, if you're watching us live right now, or in the comments after the fact. What the hell is that? Do you have a guess? What country of origin should we be assigning this accent to? For a while there, I thought it was British. And then I thought maybe, I don't know, that weird sort of mid-Atlantic 1930s His Girl Friday sort of accent that a lot of actors put on back in the day, right? That over-effectuated articulation that you can't really define where they're from. Can you help us out here? Do we have anything? Has anyone on X, Kevin McMahon, our great producer, because I haven't been watching the follow-up on this, do people think this is Southern?
It's a big mystery.
It really is. Nobody can. Okay, there's one thing we know for sure. It ain't the Bronx. Or that's actually kind of a lie. I mean, she's really from Westchester County, which is not the Bronx either, but it's all sort of in the neighborhood, I suppose. but she pretends like she's from the Bronx. But I think we know for sure that this is not the Bronx.
Donald Trump is a criminal who was found guilty of 34 felony counts of fraud, liable for sexual abuse. Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too.
What is that? It's a mystery. It's a mystery. It's a mystery, especially because we have evidence that, well, she's sort of dabbled in accents before, and it didn't sound like that. It sounded like this.
And I, for one, am tired of hearing about how a two-bit union buster thinks of himself as more of a patriot than the woman who fights every single day to lift working people out from under the boots of greed, trampling on our way of life.
All right, and that, whoa, did you see how crazy the eyes were at the end there? Ooh. Gentlemen, it's always in the eyes. Gentlemen, I know that you get distracted by other things, but always, always examine the eyes. Ooh. So now that was not the Bronx either. That was Brooklyn. That's what that was. That was Brooklyn, or maybe Detroit. But I'm not sure what it is. Do we have any sort of consensus in the live chat on what this accent is? Communist. Yes, that's fair to say. All right, so what's going on here? Why do Democrats always do this? And by the way, again, I don't want to give them any help here because I want them to keep losing. But I got to be honest and real. They don't get it. See, we're past this. We American voters, we don't play this game anymore. We don't need you to pretend to be somebody else because it makes us feel good about ourselves. All right. We don't need you to lie about how you keep hot sauce in your purse. We don't need you to pretend that you like bowling or hot dogs or going to games. We know better. We don't need you to fake your accent to pretend like you're from somewhere where you're not. Have you not understood anything in the last 10 years of American politics? We have reached the point now where we value authenticity, even if you're a jerk, even if you come across a little rough-edged, even if you break a national championship trophy in the Rose Garden, if you're celebrating the Ohio State Buckeyes, just be genuine and real about it. Okay? Don't say you're the boy from Scranton and then talk about how you're from Delaware all the time. Don't tell me that you were raised in a black church and raised in a Puerto Rican neighborhood and raised going to synagogue and raised celebrating gay marriage. And then at the same time, while you're telling me all of those things, tell me that you're a devout practicing Catholic. Biden was able to do all those things, and none of us bought it. None of us believed it. That's very 30 years ago. It didn't really work then. And it certainly doesn't work now. If you want to know why, I hear it all the time. How can people like Donald Trump when he says these things and says that thing and tweets this stuff and tweets that stuff and he's mean and he's rude and he's obnoxious? And I'm like, well, yeah, first of all, he's a New Yorker. Have you ever met a New Yorker who isn't rude and obnoxious? That's sort of the thing. But he's not rude and obnoxious to everybody. In fact, he's pretty gracious to most people. But when you mess with him, then he will mess back. And we like fighters who defend themselves and defend us, because we had to watch a president that we kind of liked for 8 years who was called a warmonger and a criminal and a Hitler and a smirking chimp and a fascist and an authoritarian. And he just shrugged and smiled and went to the golf course. And yeah, I guess that was cool about him. But it would have been nice for him to defend himself and fight for himself, because if he doesn't defend himself and fight for himself, then he won't defend us and fight for us. And so we like that. And we like that he's authentic. Because if he were a phony, then he wouldn't fight back. If he was a phony, he wouldn't tweet things. If he was a phony, he wouldn't say stuff that is sometimes sort of a facepalm moment. But like it or not, he's genuine. And this, I don't know what this is, but it ain't genuine. You know, Tucker Carlson and the great Mark Steyn had a segment about this when it first reared its head with Bernie and Hillary and all of this stuff, where they try to glom on to other people to try to take on their personalities and their traits to sort of make themselves more relatable. They had a great exchange about this. It's called code switching. Here, take a watch.
So I got to ask about this. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez started sporting a new accent while speaking at Al Sharpton's extremely tax-exempt conference last week. Watch.
The fight's been long, y'all. This is what organizing looks like.
That's right.
This is what building power looks like. I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Ocasio-Cortez says she's from the Bronx and she's always spoken that way. She says it was code switching and that her normal day-to-day voice is the fake one. But she's not the first Democrat to discover a long-lost accent when speaking before an African-American audience. You'll remember. Watch.
I don't feel no ways tired. I come too far from where I started from. Nobody told me that the road would be easy.
Mark, if you patronized an audience that much, would you feel shame?
Well, look, in fairness, I'd say Hillary's terrible at it. Absolutely terrible. And Alexandria, if you're going to do it, you have to do it with, and I speak as a foreigner, so I can't tell the difference between Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and William F. Buckley Jr. All you Americans sound the same to me. But Hillary can't do it. And actually, I think that gets to the heart of it. Alexandria can get away with it in a way that Hillary can't, because I think for Hillary and Joe Biden, when he was doing, they're going to put you all back in chain. I think those people are saying, I want to be something other than white. Take my whiteness away from me. I'm Indian, like Elizabeth Warren. I'm Hispanic, like Beto O'Rourke. Or I'm just whoever I'm standing in front of at the moment, like Hillary. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, whatever you say about her, is doing it with a much lighter touch.
I think it's a fair
Hillary
point.
Clinton.
I wonder, though, we're roughly the same age. Didn't you grow up in a world where people were encouraged to be who you naturally are? When you were a kid, could you imagine living in a country where people are supposed to be ashamed of how they were born? I thought that was the opposite of what we wanted.
Yeah, it is. By the way, it's great to see that. I'm reminded how much I miss the Tucker face. I miss the Tucker face. I like the new show and all most of the time. I'd ask different questions of some of his guests now and again. I'm not going to lie. But I'm a supporter of the channel. I like independent media. But I miss the face. I wish he would just go back like once a week, do an interview in this format so we get the Tucker face. Because the Tucker face is great when somebody else is talking. So there you go. It was code switching, and it's a thing. And back in the day, Stein thought that AOC was pretty good at it. Although it is weird that, listen, if you're just going to code switch and go back to, your Alex on the block accent, that's one thing. But whatever that thing was in Idaho, I'm not sure. By the way, beyond the accent, she's been on the trail openly accusing her colleagues of felonies. That's noteworthy.
We saw it just happen with Trump's corrupt and disastrous and rushed tariff scheme. We saw Marjorie Taylor Greene buy that dip. I got one question for her. How much did you make? How much did you make off of people's despair? How much did you make off that panic? How much did you make off of that suffering? No more. We can't accept it.
That's noteworthy when you accuse your fellow member of Congress of committing a felony, although I think that Congress has laws exempting themselves from all that insider trading thing. Not so in the White House, by the way. A lot of people don't know that, but when you go to the White House, you're not allowed to own stocks in companies. You're not allowed to direct any trades. You're allowed a few mutual funds, but you're not allowed to do anything to them. So as they accuse the White House of some kind of insider trading, buying the dip sort of thing, with the tariff bounce that we had last week, Congress conveniently has exempted themselves from all of that. I think that AOC has a legitimate question there, but instead of asking Marjorie Taylor Greene, she might want to turn to her right and ask Nancy Pelosi, that person sitting right next to her. That would be a good place to start those questions. All righty. Oh, There's one thing I haven't plugged. It's my book. Boy, the sales for my book have been booming lately. I think it's because I did the Mark Levin show on Friday. If you're joining us from that and you get to know me from the Mark Levin show, thank you for watching. Check out my book. It's called Shameless Liars, How Trump Defeated the Legacy Media and Made Them Irrelevant. We do a lot of media analysis here on this show. And if you like my take on the media and some of the things I reveal, you're going to love this book. It's a good one. It's thorough. It covers all the lies and manipulation that the media engaged in during the 2024 presidential election, but it also tells you how we've turned the page on all of that. Because of Trump's leadership and his ability to bypass the corporate gatekeepers in the media, we've got a whole new world dawning. In fact, you're experiencing it right now. I can go direct to you, and you come direct to me. And you're engaged in part of the conversation in our chat and comment section. And actually, this is the new media that Andrew Breitbart promised us we'd be able to experience. That's where we are right now. We are the media. You don't need George Stephanopoulos or Joe or Mika anymore. You've got us. So buy my book. Check it out. It's on Amazon, hardcover, paperback, and audio book. Thank you. Now, I was going to begin this segment with a really tacky, inappropriate joke reminiscing the Muppet sketch called Pigs in Space, and that would be wrong. But that was my way of making the joke anyway. Jeff Bezos, who owns a rocket ship called Blue Origin because he's got rocket envy with Elon Musk, he's trying to pioneer space tourism, I suppose, where you stick a bunch of amateurs into a capsule, shoot them up into the stratosphere, and let them fall back down onto Earth safely. It's sort of like Alan Shepard's first mission to space back in the late 50s. The difference is you're stuck in a capsule with a bunch of other people instead of the solitude of your own thoughts. And some of those other people will be really insufferable, like Katy Perry and Gayle King. They returned to Earth yesterday, these women. It looked like, I was hoping for some sort of really cool science fiction pillow fight up there. I'm not going to lie. I'm a big fan of Katy Perry. It has nothing to do with who she is, what she says, what she stands for, what she believes. It has to do with her ability to look good in a tight blue jumpsuit like she does. And she carried that off. And thank you, Katy. Then, sadly, Katy Perry had to talk.
It is the highest high, and it is surrender to the unknown, trust. And this whole journey is not just about going to space. It's the training, it's the team, it's the whole thing. I couldn't recommend this experience more. This is like up there with all the, different tools that I've learned in my life, from meditation to the Hoffman process. This is up there because what you're doing is you're like really finding the love for yourself, because you got to trust in yourself on this journey. And then you're feeling the love when you come down, for sure. And you're feeling that strength. So I feel really connected to that strong, divine feminine right now.
By the way, you're such a badass. I love that the month of April, you're like, I'm going to space and I'm launching my tour.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there. What did she mention? The Huffman Institute? Isn't that? Well, I don't want to get sued. Go ahead and search it yourself and reach your own conclusion. I'm just glad that Katy Perry has finally found a way to love herself, because if there's one thing that all of us observing Katy Perry over the years have been thinking, it's like, I just wish that woman would be fonder of herself. She just doesn't love herself enough. And thank goodness. She better be careful. It might border on narcissism. We wouldn't want that to happen with Katy Perry. By the way, she also mentioned the training. This isn't just about the ride. This is about the training. So I did a little research into the training, and though we don't have the full spectrum of details, I can tell you that the New Shepard crew, including Gayle King and Katy Perry, underwent a few days of training. Yeah, she made it sound like she was part of like the right stuff, and they were like off training for months on end. It was days of training. What did the training involve? All right. Number one, the fitting for the flight suits. I kid you not. Step one in your training, get over to wardrobe so we can get you in costume. The fitting for the flight suits, ensuring proper gear for the journey. So there you go. For the journey, for the 10 minutes. Bloop, bloop, 10 minutes. That's the journey. All right. Number two, capsule familiarization. So a tour of the little room they were in, learning the layout of the New Shepard capsule, including seat assignments, camera locations, and oxygen mask placement. In other words, you know the training you get before you go on a commercial airline flight when the flight attendant shows you where the exits are and what happens when the oxygen mask drops down and how to buckle your seatbelt? That was a big part of the training. All right, number 3, safety protocols covering emergency procedures and how to respond to ground control. So when they talk to you, push this button and talk back. This is the training that they had. And then zero gravity orientation, preparing for the brief period of weightlessness. That was the training that Katy Perry was so hyped up about there. I've heard people refer to them as a crew. They were not a crew. I've heard people refer to them as passengers. I guess they could call them passengers. I like to refer to them as cargo. They were cargo. By the way, what was that last thing that Katy said there? The last part of what she learned on this journey?
You're feeling that strength. So I feel really connected to that strong, divine feminine right now.
She's connected to that strong, divine feminine. Somebody should reveal to Katy that she just connected to that strong, divine feminine while taking a ride on the single most phallic symbol I have ever seen in my life. I mean, rockets in general are phallic symbols. But Mr. Bezos is overcompensating for something here. There are rocket phallic symbols, and then there's Blue Origin. Blue Origin makes Saturn V rocket look like... So I'm glad that she got connected to her divine feminism while taking a ride on a giant. Meanwhile, Gayle King has much to say about this mission. It's a mission, by the way, a mission.
What do you think when people say, oh, it's frivolous? Number one, they call it a ride, which I find very irritating because they never say men went for a ride. What do you say to people who think that this was frivolous or just a ride? I think the message that it sends is very, very powerful. And the people that say that, by the way, weren't there.
Okay, so it was a ride. And if men did this, I would call it a ride too. It's not a mission. It's not a journey. This is like Six Flags. All right. I'm sorry. Yes, there is danger involved. Absolutely. There's danger involved at Six Flags too. You've got to be kidding me. They don't say, guess what? The last ride was William Shatner, an 80-something-year-old who is famous for playing Captain Kirk, who also never actually went to space. That was just a TV show and a movie series. Spoiler alert. But they thought it would be kind of cool to send Captain Kirk up into space. And guess what? When he came back, he said, wow, what a ride. Was he being sexist to himself? Oh, Gayle. God, she takes herself seriously. Although that's just scratching the surface of a very, very, very deep revelation of how seriously Gayle King takes herself. Watch this. When she finally got back to terra firma after her journey to space.
To me, it's such a reminder about how we need to do better, be better. Do better, be better human beings.
And what do you mean by that?
Processing. Well, it's so nasty and so vitriolic nowadays. And I mean, if everybody could experience that peace that we had up there and the kindness and what it takes to do what we did, all the people that it took to get us up there and get us back safely, I'll never, ever, ever forget. And when
do better, be better. So her 10 minutes of weightlessness in the stratosphere before plummeting back to the earth has taught her to do better and be better. It's a lesson for all of us. I thought that the smarmy, smug sanctimony from celebrities had reached its zenith in our culture, but I hadn't contemplated how smarmy, smug, and sanctimonious those same celebrities would be after going to the stratosphere. Smarmy, smug, sanctimonious celebrities in the stratosphere. That's the name of the next mission. That's Gayle King. Gayle King reminding us all to be better, do better, be better. Thank God Oprah's best friend is there to lecture us about how to do better and be better. Like the time on CBS News when she told us to do better and be better. Are you being better, Gail?
It's so hard for me to focus on anything other than this shooting.
me
I have
too.
to
My
say,
head
guys,
is
it's
my
just very
stuff.
difficult for me right now. It's hard for me to accept the fact that we live in a country where I guess we think it's okay to kill children.
There you go. There's Gail King practicing what she preaches. She's always figuring out a way to do better and to be better. And she thinks we live in a country where it's okay to kill kids. But it's wrong for me to just reduce her entire identity to the mere fact that she's best friends with Oprah. She brings more to the table than that, right?
And I'm so proud of us. I really am proud of me because I never in a gazillion years thought I could do this. And I just saw a video of us walking up the, I don't want to call it plank, but what's the proper, and
she's really proud of herself. I'm really proud of me. Who forms that thought, let alone articulates that sentence in normal society? I'm really proud of me. I guess I was wrong. I apologize, and I would like to publicly apologize and correct the record. The fact of the matter is Gail King literally does bring nothing to the table here other than the fact that she's Oprah's best friend. And then I guess that, well, that opens up a lot of doors for you. And now she's made it to space. It's the Oprahfication of space travel. And I still don't want to have anything to do with it if it means being in that club. So what have we learned about this little journey? When we shot the cast of The View up into space, what have we learned? Well, we've learned that Katy Perry has learned to love herself. And we've learned that Gail King is proud of herself. And it's really all about what you believe and think about yourself when you look in the mirror. And I'm glad Jeff Bezos has taken this journey for us, or allowed them to take the journey for us, I guess. The lengths he will go to shoot his fiance up into space and have 10 minutes of peace and quiet. It's impressive. It really is. Also, his rocket looks exactly like a giant. All right, that's our show. I thought I'd end on a high note. Angela with a $5 super chat says, who has creamier mashed potatoes for brains, Bozo Biden or Kaitlan Collins? No wonder mainstream media continues to plummet. Well, you know, President Biden will always hold a place in our hearts for being the original mashed potato for brains. And I'm guessing just based on age, his are creamier and Caitlin's are lumpier. Let's not forget her first gig in the media out of college was at the Daily Caller, hired by Tucker Carlson to work at the Daily Caller. Boy, what a long road she's been on. And we're so proud of her. Well done, Angela. Good point. Thank you for that. And Rosario Sister, I love that mic so much. That is sexy. $19.99. Thank you for that. That's a great super chat. In regards to your segment about media reputation, have you seen The Walls Are Closing In, the beginning of the end bombshell turning point clip from the media frenzy during President Trump's first term? I have. I used to play it all the time, actually, during the first term on the radio. I'm trying to remember. That was either Media Research Center. They're great. The people at Media Research Center do these great montages. That's why the montage of how CNN doesn't hate this country came from Media Research Center. It may have been from the guys at the Washington Free Beacon, too, because they've done some good montages on that, too. Or for that matter, it could be from our very own Kevin McMahon. Kevin, you've been known to put together a couple of good media montages in the past, haven't you?
Nah, I leave that to the experts.
Oh, I've seen you do a couple of montages. Come on, don't be shy. All right. Thank you, Rosario, for the super chat. That's fantastic. And thank you all for watching. If you're with us now, you stuck with us through the show, so I'll remind you now to like our video. I should have done that at the beginning, but many of you did, and we appreciate it. Although some of you gave us the angry face. I'm hoping that you're angry at the content and not at me. Either way, give us a like, give us a love, give us some hearts, give us a share, give us a subscription. You should subscribe so you can constantly know when we're going live here on the program, because sometimes we'll surprise you. And we appreciate all of the support that you've been able to give us so much. Thank you. And I'm fancy, by the way, because I've got to get out of the studio right now and head straight to the Newsmax studio. Look for me later tonight on Newsmax on the Right Squad with Chris Plant. I'll be on the squad there with him, with possibly Maryland man Matt Foldy. Did you like that I stuck Foldy in there at the end there, Kevin?
I chuckled.
He's a Maryland man. Come on. He is the quintessential Maryland man.
Rolled my eyes as well.
A little bit. He's just a dude with the crabs. Wait, that came out wrong. Thanks for watching. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.